2020 is fixing up to be one of the most interesting years in video games yet.
Yeah, let's talk about our most anticipated releases.
Hot take.
2020202.
Yeah, this year's gonna be insane.
Oh, it really is.
Especially like the March and April zone is nuts.
Yeah.
So nuts.
Like, look, I've been playing video games for a long time, as you have.
I've been playing them.
I don't think I've ever seen a year that's this packed before of things that legitimately sound like they're all going to be awesome.
Right. So we wanted to talk about a lot of these games, and we want to go sort of bullet quick. We want to go super duper quick so that you can enjoy a holiday meal or something, whatever you do during the season.
Yeah.
You want to go quick?
Very quick.
Okay.
Let's begin.
There.
Halo Infinite. Now, originally I wasn't that interested in Halo Infinite because after the last entries of the series, they didn't really seem to grab me too much. But what's been really cool about Halo Infinite is kind of the idea that they're going back to its roots, going back to the original Halo and trying something in that field. We might see something from the new kind of Xbox leadership that is trying to create an entirely new identity for what Halo is. And we might see a franchise reborn from the kind of mess that it's been in recently with the Xbox One.
We're hearing that this thing is going to be sprawling, far more ambitious, and I hope that the game is true to that. It works into those ambitions, because they're talking about this not being, the old Halo games were far more like, okay, go down this corridor and this corridor, and then you'd have an open section here or there. This is supposed to be far more open and far more story driven, which is cool.
Now, speaking of first-person shooters, Doom Eternal, Doom 2016. Brilliant game, folks. Unbelievably good. It took what first-person shooters had lacked for so long, which was the good punch and feel of the weapons in the first-person shooter, and brought it all back.
Yep.
Super good, super fast, looks amazing while doing it, and this is the sequel.
Yeah, exactly. And the sequel seems to be doing more of the same. You're still the Doomslayer, and people are still terrified of you from what we've seen.
Yes.
You are the monster. It's just brilliant. That's a brilliant way of... But they're adding other things to this. We saw some cool sort of grappling things and stuff. It just easier ways to sort of zip around the screen and shoot demons. What more could you ask for in a Doom game?
Now, next up, Final Fantasy VII, the remake.
Can I talk?
Oh, yeah,
can I talk about this? Can I do a thing?
Yes, you can.
Final Fantasy VII Remake is a game we should have gotten a decade ago. To say that this game is highly anticipated is not doing it justice at all. The first release of Remake is supposed to be mostly in Midgar, if not entirely there. And I guess there's been a soundtrack that's been released that has kind of pointed to that. A lot of the songs on the official soundtrack are pointing to it being like a very small chunk of what is this sort of grand Final Fantasy game. I'm a little worried about it, though. Of course, I'm anticipating it. Final Fantasy VII was the reason I bought a PlayStation back in the day, and it was the first RPG I really sunk my teeth into. So it has I have really high expectations, as I think every Final Fantasy player has for this. It's long time coming.
Long time coming. Another game that's long time coming, Ghost of Tsushima. We've been waiting for that for a very long time. Look, we thought it was going to come out on the PlayStation 5, but apparently, according to Jeff Keighley at the Video Game Awards, it's still coming out for the PlayStation 4. I think literally it's going to come out, then 2 hours later, the PlayStation 5 is going to be there.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So this game, it's anticipated because of not only how beautiful it looked, but the pedigree of the developer. It's Sucker Punch, and Sucker Punch has done a lot of great things like Infamous. And we've just been kind of sort of chomping at the bit. Hey, what's Sucker Punch been doing all this time? And then we saw this, and we're like, can you do that? We thought you were all about the Americana thing. Or you're making a Japanese style game with samurai that looks better than some other proper Japanese developer. What's the next game?
Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. Folks, I'm such a big fan of the original. Black Isle Studios did an amazing job on the game. Through a whole assortment of problems, the game didn't come out at the right time, had glitches and bugs, but fans fixed it, and what it is now is a fantastic experience of a game worth going back to, and we're getting a sequel to a game I never thought would happen. This is a big deal. I'm excited for it.
Is this one? This is the one with the shiny vampires?
No.
I think that's Twilight.
Probably Twilight.
Okay, next up is Psychonauts 2. I played a little bit of the first Psychonauts, and I thought it was amazing. I thought it really did feel like the folks that made Super Mario Galaxy looked at that game, and they were like, oh, we can do that and do it really well. And it felt like Psychonauts, at the very beginning, it did a lot of things that that it was not getting recognition for.
Yeah.
It was such a cool sort of like, I don't know how else to say it, like an LSD trip of a title with a lot of cool sort of mind-bending,
Yes.
literally mind-bending universes to go through.
Yep, and now Psychonauts 2 looks like much of the same. There was also a VR game that was released on PlayStation VR. You can get the original Psychonauts on modern systems now. Highly encouraged to play it because when you see what they've done with the sequel from what I've seen so far, it looks like it's going to be a game that a lot of people are going to want to play.
Very cool. Next up, we have HalfLife Alyx. No one cares about Half-Life.
Yeah, no one really. Yeah, it's important, folks.
It's not Half-Life 3, but it's Half-Life 3.
Yeah, look.
Kind of, like,
Yeah,
kind of.
It really is. Look, we've been waiting for so long for a new Half-Life game, and we're finally getting one. There is a huge wall of entry, which is VR. I think a lot of people are going to be very upset. I think a lot of people that don't know what VR is, that are going to get into VR, are likely not going to enjoy the experience of playing Half-Life Alyx in VR because VR is a very weird thing.
There are some people that will never engage with a VR game positively. And it's not because a game is good or bad. It's because VR for some people doesn't work and it never will.
Yeah.
Unless there's some sort of like brand new integration, we're talking leaps and bounds, it's not going to work for people for a long time.
Yes. Regardless, though, if this game does well, maybe even does bad, it's a promissory note that Valve is back into making video games. Boy, it's been a long time.
And it's story-driven.
Yes.
We want more story. We want more Half-Life story because we were left with that cliffhanger at the end of episode 2.
Yep.
We're not necessarily going to get that all cleared up, but we'll get some more because this is within the rest of the plot. This is kind of a prequel.
Yes,
Yeah.
so I'm excited for that. Now, next is a game I never thought we'd see a sequel to because after the first one, I thought they were kind of done. Super Meat Boy Forever. Kind of impressed by this. Originally, from what I'm to understand, it was going to be a mobile game, but then they realized you can't sell mobile games anymore. So they decided to make this, which is not a mobile game anymore, but actually a sequel to the original Super Meat Boy. Super Meat Boy Forever, from what I've seen, looks to be much of the same, but that's good. It's a very good game originally, and to see a sequel to it is a good deal.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be more of that sort of frantic, you died, you're immediately respawned, and you're trying to get around the objects and stuff again. But it looks even more like more of a hellish landscape than the first title, which is insane because that game was ridiculously difficult.
Yes.
Next up, we have a title that I'm eagerly anticipating, and we just kind of heard official confirmation about this, and that is Resident Evil 3.
Yeah.
Nemesis is back, baby!
This is a big deal, folks.
Boy.
People have been waiting for this one. Of all the games that have been remade or re-released in multiple formats, Resident Evil 3 is one of those games that is very hard to come by because it was really only released once, really, and never remade or redone or anything
like the
that.
reports and
there,
stuff,
yeah.
which you can count. But no, you're right. We've seen other titles, like basically all the other older Resident Evil games, maybe barring Code Veronica, have had some sort of like tweaked up-res sort of thing.
Yeah.
Resident Evil 3 was always this weird sort of like stepchild to the Resident Evil. Even though it is a numbered sequel, a lot of people were like, oh no, I just passed it by because it was, I believe the PS2 was already out or was very close to being out at that time. And then Code Veronica was a thing as well.
Yep.
So a lot of people missed out on Nemesis. And if you tried to go back to it, it's a PS1 game. It doesn't look all that great. Well, the folks over at Capcom, talk about a company turning around, but
Wow.
they proved that they could do amazing things with Resident Evil 7, of course, and then Resident Evil 2, the remake.
Yep.
It was just an amazing game. I can't say enough good things about it.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm assuming that the third one's going to be in the same vein. Excited.
That's what we hope for. Now, next game is something that should have come out in 2019, but it didn't. I guess in the next couple of days it could still come out. Samurai Gun 2. Samurai Gun is a really fun game. We played the original on Steam.
Yeah.
It is just a quick, fun Towerfall-like experience.
It's a Towerfall-like. It's couch co-op. If you played games like Towerfall or Duck Game, it's a tournament-style title. But the cool thing about it is that, yes, you're a samurai. Yes, you have a katana or a sword, but you also have a gun. Who would have thought? It's in the title. And you have only a few bullets. 3?
Yeah, I think it's 3 bullets. Yeah.
Do you know if that's carrying over into the sequel as well?
I hope so. I've seen so little about Samurai Gun 2. We know that people have been playing it at like events and stuff like that. All I know is that I want it. That's it. The biggest problem with the original was that it was limited to a certain number of platforms. It was a co-op experience that you had to be, or not co-op, but a versus experience that you had to be playing with the same person or with another person in the same room. But with this one, it's coming to Switch, which means I can take my Switch to other places, play it with people on the go. That's going to be a big deal for me.
I think it's a perfect game for the Switch. Speaking of small, tiny, little compact consoles, This is not a game title, but
No,
this
but it's
is
important
several
nonetheless.
games.
Yeah.
It's very important, and we wanted to put it on this list. Little slip of the tongue there. The TurboGrafx Mini.
Yes.
No one's talking about this. It seems like everyone's forgotten about it because little mini and classic consoles get doled out so quick. We just had the SNK Fight Stick come out, and that came out of nowhere. Keep your eyes peeled for the TurboGrafx Mini. I feel like Konami is really trying their hardest to sort of gain back some of the ground that they've lost in the last few years with these questionable decisions they've been making with video games. So this is supposed to be embracing the legacy of the TurboGrafx. We're getting a bunch of really cool titles. Not the best way to play Snatcher, but Snatcher's going to be on it. We won't necessarily be able to play through it.
Yeah, but you know what, folks? This is important because this is one of those systems that I think the NES Classic, known name brand.
Yes.
Sega Genesis, known classic, known
you know
name
what
brand.
games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when it comes to TurboGrafx was never that popular. So to see this come out, if it's a success, classic systems continue. If it's not, they probably end with that actual system.
Yeah, and yes, the games on this thing, man. Even though it wasn't a success in North America, huge success in Japan. Even though it wasn't a success, the games are still really good.
Yes.
Airzonk's good. Splatterhouse is coming to it. It's good. There's so many great games on this thing. A lot of shooters and stuff. If you're into that kind of thing, I can't wait to see what this is.
Something's very rarely ported, if any time ported at all.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, next game, Animal Crossing New Horizons.
I think I'm more excited about it than you've never really been into the, and that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
Animal Crossing is not a game for everyone. Animal Crossing is a game that you pick up for an hour or 2 hours a day, and you go get some shells. You go dig. You go find some bones. You catch a butterfly or two. You collect enough bells so that you can upgrade your tent or your house or whatever the heck it is. And then you just slow progression, but it is filled with. We were talking recently a little bit about Link's Awakening.
Yes.
And it very much has that cute, chibi warmth to it. That overall warmth.
Without the combat, right? That's what you're looking at.
Yeah. I mean, unless you consider fishing combat, which sometimes I do, depending on the day of the week.
Yeah.
But yes, Animal Crossing, I'm very excited to see what happens with New Horizons. So far, the trailers have not shown us all that much to be excited about. If you've played other Animal Crossing games, in fact, it might seem like a step back because there's some weird islandy stuff. But I'm kind of hoping that we get more of a Breath of the Wild, Mario Odyssey, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're doing it that way, than something that feels like a couple steps back.
Sure. More to be seen next year.
Yep.
Now, this one I know you're a big fan of,
Yes.
Last of Us Part 2. This is one you've been looking forward to ever since they did the first game.
Yeah, absolutely. As soon as The Last of Us finished, I felt content. I was like, okay, you wrapped up the story. If you never made another game, it's fine. But there was still sort of a lingering thing in my mind where I was like, I love these characters so much, Joel and Ellie, and I want to see kind of what happens. We may not see as much of Joel in The Last of Us Part 2, but he is in the game. It seems to be, more based on what Ellie's going to be doing. And I remember when they were first talking about developing this title that the key word here was like anger or hatred. So this is we have that in mind, and we're seeing a lot of the sort of demos that are coming out, and it's very visceral, very gory. I hope that the characters are still very well developed, and there's still that sort of heart in the story, because there are moments in that original game that, oh my gosh, even if you just play the first 10 or 15 minutes of the game, you get heart-wrenching, and you're there, you're right in the moment, and that's what a perfect game does, man.
Yes, absolutely. It's one of those games that I think Sony is very lucky to have had on their system, and I'm pretty sure the next game is going to be a very big entry for a lot of people with when it comes out.
Yeah, Ori and the Will of the Wisps is another game that we're anticipating quite a bit. Are you familiar with the first one?
Yes.
So it is a Metroidvania style game. Some people hate that term, but it is. It's a platformer. The first one was a platformer, quite difficult for some, but I feel like it was fair if you knew how to make your jumps and your attacks and stuff.
Yep.
And the upgrade system was pretty cool too. I feel like in a world where we're getting more and more of these styles of games, like Hollow Knight 2, not Hollow Knight 2, but Hollow Knight as well, that it's a little bit of a harder fight now for these games to stick out. So though the art direction looks quite good, I really want to see that they up the ante and not just make more of the same, something that proves that they can stand out in the sea of these Metroidvania style games.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, next game, System Shock. Now, this is a remake of the original System Shock. System Shock is a much older game, originally created by Warren Spector and a couple of other really important video game designers. There was a demo of this on Steam. So I actually got to play just a little bit of it for like 24 hours or 48 hours until they turned it off. But yeah, it was pretty much what you would expect. It's the original System Shock, the same kind of gameplay, refined mechanics, kind of like a voxel type of design to it. So you've got these, like when you get really close, you can see the pixels and things. It's got a very nice atmosphere, wonderful lighting, great sound design. Everything about the game looks like it's what you'd want. Word of warning, if you're a fan of BioShock, you might like going back to something like System Shock, but you're not going to be getting the exact same experience. System Shock is a lot slower of a game. It's not as focused on the combat in the way that BioShock is.
Even I was watching as you're playing through the demo, it feels very much like an old RPG, an old PC RPG.
Yes.
And that can be great because we're not getting a lot of those,
Yes,
right?
exactly,
So if this is harkening back to that in a land or a world where we don't have a lot of those, it's great to have something that we haven't seen in a while,
That's
right?
exactly it, yeah.
Okay, next up we have Oddworld Sol Storm. I was a big fan of the all of the Oddworld games, going all the way back. Oddworld Abe's Exodus was one of my favorites, and this is basically a remake of that. And it seems like it is a pretty heavy remake. We did get Oddworld New and Tasty, which was the remake of the first game.
That was really nice.
Yeah, and that did well enough so that they decided to jump into the sequel. And this looks like there's more going on here that's different than there was with New and Tasty. Like a lot of the combat and the way that you interact with a lot of the enemies and stuff in this is it seems far more like sprawling and interesting. There's just more stuff that you can do.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. I don't want them to recreate the exact same game again. No. I want them to make a new experience.
Yeah.
New and Tasty was fine, but add more.
Yeah,
do more.
Exactly.
Right?
The AI interaction stuff that we've seen so far is pretty incredible. So they've still only shown off little snippets, and I do highly suggest that you go and check those out. But we're going to be seeing much more of that in 2020, and likely it'll be released.
Yes. Now, finally, the last game that we're going to be talking about is one...
No, that was everything.
No, I think there's just one more. Hold
on.
Yeah, it's called Cyberpunk 2077.
Cyberpunk 2077?
Yeah, that's
I didn't play the first 2076 ones.
Yeah. Look, folks, this is going to be a game that I think everyone is looking forward to. From the creators of the Witcher series, you're looking at a game that is trying to be a new implementation on an old 90s cyberpunk or 80s cyberpunk aesthetic. The visuals look amazing. The choices you can do in the game look great. We know that CD Projekt Red puts tons of effort into their games. Just like Valve, they have their own digital storefront. They make money from that, and they can fund their own games. So they have that same kind of cash revenue. So they can put a lot of effort into this. There's an incredible soundtrack that's being worked on. Big story with so many features of things that you can do. So many ways to change the story, the narrative, and make everything happen. This looks like I'm a big fan of Deus Ex. So seeing a game that's in that same form factor but has a bit of a grittier look to it, I'm all for that. I like Johnny Mnemonic, wanted a Johnny Mnemonic game, never got one. Well, never got a good one, so now we got this.
I love how you said Johnny Mnemonic and Keanu Reeves is in the game. Isn't that perfect?
It's perfect.
That's just perfect.
Perfect.
I wonder if there's going to be a cybernetic dolphin, Shane.
I can only hope so.
Dolphin
will return. Folks,
okay.
What do you think about all these games? Is there anything that we missed? Are you excited for 2020 as much as we are?
Yeah, it is going to be a huge year. But if you feel like we missed some of the games that were on our list, we should have had other ones, please let us know what you want in the comments below.